Welcome to Impartial Points and our in-depth guide on three critical economic concepts: inflation, deflation, and stagflation. These terms often come up in discussions about the economy, but what do they really mean, and how do they impact our everyday lives? In this video, we're going to break down each of these phenomena, explore why prices don't easily come down after a period of high inflation, understand why deflation can be harmful, and explain why stagflation is one of the toughest challenges for central banks to manage. Whether you're a student, an economist, or just curious about how the economy works, this explainer will give you the insights you need. So, let's get started. Part 1. What is inflation? Let's start with inflation, one of the most commonly discussed economic concepts. Inflation refers to the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services rises, leading to a decrease in the purchasing power of money. In simpler terms, it means that over time, the same amount of money buys fewer goods and services. Causes of inflation. There are two main types of inflation. Demand pull inflation. This occurs when demand for goods and services exceeds supply. Imagine a holiday shopping season where everyone wants the hottest new gadget, but stores can't keep up with the demand. Prices go up because people are willing to pay more to get what they want. Another more relevant example is imagining a global pandemic reducing production and therefore reducing the amount of available imported goods, thereby driving up prices. Cost push inflation. This happens when the cost of production for goods and services increases, leading businesses to raise prices. For example, if the cost of oil rises, it becomes more expensive to produce and transport goods, so prices go up to cover those higher costs. Another example would be the broad application of tariffs, adding increased cost to imported goods and driving up prices. Why don't prices go down after inflation? You might wonder, if prices can go up, why don't they easily come down after a period of high inflation? This is due to what economists call price stickiness. Several factors contribute to this. Menu costs. Changing prices can be costly for businesses, especially if they have to frequently update menus, price tags, or marketing materials. Wage contracts. Many workers have contracts that include cost of living adjustments based on inflation. Even if the overall economy cools down, businesses may still have to pay these higher wages, which keeps prices from falling. Consumer expectations. If people expect prices to continue rising, businesses may hesitate to lower them, fearing it could hurt their profits. Impact of inflation. Moderate inflation is generally seen as a sign of a healthy, growing economy. However, high inflation erodes purchasing power, making it harder for people to afford everyday items. This can lead to reduced savings, increased cost of living, and potential social unrest. This is especially true if wages don't keep up with inflation. Part 2. What is deflation? Now let's turn to deflation, which is essentially the opposite of inflation. Deflation is the decrease in the general price level of goods and services, meaning that money becomes more valuable and can buy more than before. While this might sound like a good thing for consumers, it can actually be harmful to the economy. Why is deflation bad? At first glance, lower prices seem beneficial, but deflation can lead to a vicious economic cycle. Here's why. Reduced consumer spending. When prices are falling, people may delay purchases, expecting things to get even cheaper. This reduction in spending can slow down economic growth. Debt burden increases. Deflation increases the real value of debt. For borrowers, this means that the amount they owe becomes more expensive in real terms, making it harder to pay off loans. Wage cuts and unemployment. As businesses see lower revenues, they may cut wages or lay off workers to reduce costs, leading to higher unemployment. A good historical example is the Great Depression of the 1930s. It's a classic example of deflation causing widespread economic hardship. As prices fell, businesses went bankrupt, unemployment soared, and the economy entered a deep recession. Now we're going to look at a critical economic phenomenon known as the deflationary spiral. What happens when deflation goes too far? A deflationary spiral is a dangerous economic situation where falling prices lead to reduced consumer spending, which in turn causes businesses to cut wages, lay off workers, and lower prices even further. This creates a vicious cycle that's hard to break. Here's how it works. Falling prices. When prices drop, it might seem like a good thing for consumers at first, but as prices fall, people often delay their purchases, expecting even lower prices in the future. Decreasing demand. This hesitation to spend reduces demand for goods and services, which hurts businesses. As sales decline, companies start making less money. Layoffs and wage cuts. To cope with declining profits, businesses may cut wages or lay off workers, leading to higher unemployment. When people lose their jobs or earn less, they spend even less, which further reduces demand. Further price drops. With less demand, prices continue to fall, deepening the economic downturn, and the cycle starts all over again. This self-reinforcing loop can lead to a severe recession or even a depression, where economic activity grinds to a halt. How can a deflationary spiral be triggered? A deflationary spiral can sometimes be triggered by government efforts to lower prices. Here's how. Raising interest rates. Governments or central banks may increase interest rates too high in an effort to fight inflation. While this can reduce prices, it also makes borrowing more expensive. Higher interest rates discourage spending and investment, slowing down the economy and pushing prices down further. Austerity measures. In some cases, governments may cut spending or increase taxes to reduce budget deficits. While these measures might aim to stabilize the economy, they can also reduce overall demand, leading to lower prices and triggering deflation. Overcorrection. Sometimes, in their efforts to cool down an overheated economy, policymakers might overcorrect, causing prices to drop too sharply. For example, after a period of high inflation, aggressive actions to bring prices down can unintentionally set off a deflationary spiral. Why it's a problem. Once a deflationary spiral begins, it's extremely difficult to reverse. Traditional tools like lowering interest rates may not be enough, especially if rates are already near zero. That's why avoiding a deflationary spiral is a top priority for policymakers. So why should you care about deflationary spirals? Because they can lead to prolonged economic hardship, job losses, and reduced living standards. By understanding the risks, we can better appreciate why governments and central banks are so cautious about letting prices fall too quickly. Part 3. What is stagflation? Now let's explore stagflation, a particularly tricky economic situation that combines the worst of both worlds. Stagflation refers to a situation where the economy experiences stagnant growth, high unemployment, and high inflation all at the same time. Normally, inflation and unemployment move in opposite directions, but stagflation defies this trend. Causes of stagflation. Stagflation is rare and especially challenging for economists and policymakers. What causes stagflation? Supply shocks. A sudden increase in the cost of key commodities, like oil, can lead to stagflation. For instance, the 1970s oil crisis caused energy prices to skyrocket, which drove up costs across the board, leading to inflation while also stalling economic growth. Poor economic policies. Sometimes, a combination of policies can stifle economic growth while inflation remains high. This can create a stagnant economy with rising prices. Why stagflation is hard for central banks to influence. Central banks, like the Federal Reserve, typically use two main tools to manage the economy: raising interest rates to combat inflation or lowering interest rates to stimulate growth and reduce unemployment. But during stagflation, these tools don't work as effectively. Raising interest rates to fight inflation can further slow economic growth and increase unemployment, making the economic stagnation even worse. Lowering interest rates to stimulate the economy can increase inflation, exacerbating the problem of rising prices. This creates a difficult balancing act for policymakers, as actions to fix one part of the problem can make the other parts worse. Impact of stagflation. Stagflation leads to a decrease in the standard of living because wages don't keep up with rising prices. This squeeze on consumers' purchasing power can lead to a prolonged period of economic malaise, with reduced confidence in both the government and the economy. Part 4. Why understanding these concepts matters. Let's recap why understanding inflation, deflation, and stagflation is so important. For consumers, knowing how these economic phenomena work helps you make informed decisions about spending, saving, and investing. For businesses, companies can use this knowledge to make strategic decisions, like when to adjust prices, manage supply chains, or plan for future investments. For policymakers, understanding the causes and effects of inflation, deflation, and stagflation helps governments and central banks implement effective policies to stabilize the economy, ensuring sustainable growth and protecting jobs. And that's a deep dive into the economic concepts of inflation, deflation, and stagflation. While inflation can erode your purchasing power, deflation can slow down economic activity, and stagflation presents a unique challenge that leaves policymakers in a bind. Understanding these concepts is crucial for everyone, as they have a direct impact on our daily lives, from the cost of groceries to the value of our savings. We hope you found this discussion informative and insightful. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the world of information at your fingertips. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the complexities of the economy. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share with others who want to understand how these economic forces shape our world. See you in the next video.